Today we are going to discuss territorial sovereignty of a state. What is meant by territorial sovereignty? In the last class what we have discussed about state is one of the subject of international law. It has an abstract entity. Territory is also one of the element of state. What is territory? Territory is nothing but it is a portion of the land on the globe on which the state can exercise jurisdiction over its peoples as well as persons and property within its territory. Then, as territory is one of the essential element of sovereignty of a state can exercise its absolute authority and supreme authority over the land. That land consists of its subjects as well as the property. That is, a state can exercise its supreme authority to maintain internal order and external security, external aggression. According to what is meant by sovereignty? Sovereignty means it is the supreme authority of a state, or it is called as that is absolute power of the state. According to Austin, he says that what is meant by sovereignty? Already known that it is not to constitute any state. There must be four essential elements are to be fulfilled. One is permanent population, second one is definite territory, third one is government, fourth one is state's capacity to enter into relations with others are the sovereignty. Now we will come to the point, that is what is meant by sovereignty. Sovereignty is nothing but it is the absolute and supreme power of the state. This word sovereignty is explained by different jurists. Now we'll go with discuss with the jurist definition. According to Austin, sovereignty means sovereign is one who is a determinate human political superior in a politically and independent society. In that, a determinate person, a determinate superior who is in the habit of receiving habitual obedience from the bulk of the society, and he is not obedient to anyone. That is the sovereignty according to Austin. According to Austin, he said that this sovereign authority, supreme power of the authority, which is not limitable and which cannot be divisible. Then, according to Max Huber, in Island of Palmas, while he was giving decision at that time, he said that it is sovereignty means it is the independence of the state. Independence means it is in relation with the states. That independence signifies the supreme and exclusive authority of a state to exercise its jurisdiction over its persons as well as property within the territory. Then, according to Bodin, he said that sovereignty is nothing but it is the absolute and exclusive power of the state, and it is the supreme authority which is unrestricted by any earthly power. What is he said that it is a definite territory. It is a definite territory on which the state having the supreme authority that cannot be questionable by any other authority. That is what is called as according to Bodin. Then Judge Murray, in exchange of schooner versus exchange of Forden, schooner exchange versus that is Forden. In that case, he said that sovereignty is the absolute and supreme authority of the state. In is the word sovereignty is explained by different jurists that it is the sovereign authority, means which cannot be questionable by any other authority. It is having the supreme authority to make any laws and to control over its territory, within its territory. Then this sovereignty, this principle of sovereignty, which is in practice it is applicable that is the states are given voluntary consent, and they are also, that is by auto limitation theory, they restricted their supreme authority to abide by the laws laid down by the international conventions. For example, that is United Nations Organization or International Labour Organization, that is it is given consent that is they are abiding by those laws, and their unfettered discretion will be limited in order to abide by the that is the decisions given by the treaties. This is about what is called as the sovereignty of a state. Is already know that is the sovereignty is one of the essential element of the state. This can be explained by in this island of Bahamas arbitration. That is in this occupation, how to acquire territory under international law. Occupation is one of the mode in which a state can acquire territory under international law. In this case, island of Bahamas arbitration, a dispute was arisen between Netherlands and State of America over a piece of island, what is called as island of Bahamas. That is, it was held that United States of America has entered into a treaty with Spain in 1798. At that time, that is, Spain has given that island of Bahamas to America. Again, it was contended by Netherlands that is Spain had never has the that is occupation, has control over the contents of this island of Bahamas, and when Spain has no that is control over that, when it was not occupied that land, then there is no question of transfer of that land to United States of America. Then both the states agreed to refer that matter to arbitration. This arbitration tribunal given the decision in favor of that is Netherlands. It has held that in order to constitute occupation under international law, there are two essential elements to be fulfilled. One is it is a state's intention to establish sovereignty over a particular area or concerned part of that territory. One. Second one is the state has to exercise its actual authority over a particular area. For that, in this case, it was held that is it was found that from the records, it was that is Netherlands never has contact either with the inhabitants of that is island of Bahamas, nor it obtained the authority over that island. There is no any that is evidence to prove that it has having the authority over that area. On the other hand, Netherlands had since 1700, it has that is relationship, or it had contacted with the inhabitants of that island of Bahamas, for that where it is exercised its physical authority. For that, it was held that is island of Bahamas is a part of Netherlands. This was the decision given by that is in this judge Max Huber held it. Then this was the sovereignty over that any state can exercise its supreme authority. This question may be the for the short note or maybe problem question. Otherwise, the question may be like this. In other way, it can be asked that what are the modes of acquiring and loss of territory? Under that, first out I said that is the occupation. One more case with regard to this that is territorial sovereignty. It is Eastern Greenland case. In this case, a dispute was arised between Norway and Denmark. Norway contended that in 1931 it passed through the decree it passed that it is having the authority over a part of Greenland. It has sovereignty over the part of Greenland. At the same time, that is Denmark also claimed that it has the authority over that Greenland case. In that, during the Second World War, the Allied powers, some of our Allied powers, they also held that is this Greenland, part of Eastern Greenland was belonged to Denmark, and for that they have no objection with regard to this, that is acquiring by Denmark. Again, the Norway foreign minister has also declared that they have no any objection with regarding to the Eastern Greenland, which amounts to a part of that is Denmark. But the dispute was not accepted, and again this dispute was brought before Permanent Court of International Justice. Permanent Court of International Justice held that in order to occupy, that is occupation, or what is called as effective occupation, there are two essential elements are to be fulfilled. One is intention to establish sovereignty over a particular area, or otherwise that is displaying or exhibition of its physical authority over that particular land. It is to be established. In this case, that is that is Denmark. Denmark has proved that it is having the contacts with that inhabitants, and PCIJ held that it is Eastern Greenland was a part of Denmark and not with the that is Norway. Again, what is in it? It is given that what is the occupation means. Occupation is one of the mode of acquisition of territory in which a state can acquire or obtain a territory over which that territory is not belong to any state, or otherwise the state has not, no state has having the that is control over that territory, or what is called as that is terra nullius, that territory is not belong to any other state, or that is that territory again which was abandoned by any other state which was former in control. In that way, that is a state can acquire sovereignty over a territory which is not belong to any state, or either any state has not either discovered or not abandoned by the former state. In order to that is acquire occupation or effective occupation over that part of land or a piece of land, the state has to establish two elements, what we said, that is physical authority as well as willingness to or intention to establish sovereignty over a territory. This is about what is called as territorial sovereignty of a state. In these two cases, it was that is explained with this what is meant by sovereignty. Then other means of acquisition of territory. If the question is that what are the modes of acquisition of territory, the main question, in that one has to go with the first one is the occupation. Occupation is one of the means through which a state can acquire territory under international law. Second one is accretion, cession, annexation, plebiscite, lease, pledge, granting of sovereignty to newly emerged states. These are the means of acquisition of territory. Just we will go with briefly that is accretion. Accretion means that is the state which is added to the existing state either by artificial or by natural, that is calamities, either floods or like that. Cession. Cession is the again that is in that cession, that is one state is voluntarily merged with another state. Second, annexation. annexation again one that is one state either by force or by voluntarily that is given up that land to another state. It is called as annexation. Plebiscite, that is the people of that particular state, they have to determine to which state they want to belong. Like that, for example, the problem of Kashmir, under which that is whether that is Kashmir is belong to India or to Pakistan. But Article 370, which was that is amended recently, that in that it was said that is Kashmir as a part of Indian territory. Then lease. Lease also that, like any other that is materialistic act, here also the state can also can make a lease, can make a lease for certain period on payment of some money. Then pledge. Again the pledge, same thing, that is a state can pledge a part of that territory for a certain period on amount of some money. Then granting of sovereignty to newly emerged state. That is the states which were previously under colonial countries, or those are that is controlled by the imperial state. Whenever they grant that is sovereignty, that is independence, that is after their liberation, they become a new territory, and that they can control or they can exercise their sovereignty over that territory. That is the modes of occupation. That same thing with regard to the loss of territory also. That is cession, accretion, or subjugation, revolt, and that is dereliction and granting of newly emerged states. In all these, one state acquires the territory newly, and one state which is already that was disappeared either with that is merging of another state, or with by conquest of another state, or one state have when they give that is independence to one state, and that the state which that is loosen its earlier that is sovereign authority, and it becomes separate state. In this way, what is called as territorial sovereignty of a state. Any question or any doubt? This is the island of Palmer's arbitration. Is repeatedly asked in the problem question. That is for 9th question, 10 marks question. In this, you have to write that is what is called as island of Palmer's arbitration. It is the territorial sovereignty of a state. Under that is occupation, one of the means through which a state can acquire, that is a territory over which the state can exercise that is its supreme authority. This was explained in the popular case island of Palmer's arbitration. This is the conclusion of this chapter. Good morning everyone. Today we are going to discuss state jurisdiction. See, what is meant by jurisdiction? How the state can exercise jurisdiction? Whether it can exercise jurisdiction only with regarding to civil jurisdiction or criminal jurisdiction. Then under what circumstances a state can exercise jurisdiction? There are certain exceptions with the state to exercise jurisdiction in both the civil and criminal cases. Then last one is the criminal jurisdiction. The state can exercise even extraterritorial jurisdiction. Now we'll go with what is the meaning of this jurisdiction. State jurisdiction. You already know that that is jurisdiction or the territory and the population are one of the attributes of state. In that, it is what is called as jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is the competence of the state or the power of the state to exercise its jurisdiction or authority over its persons as well as property which is situated within its territory. It can exercise jurisdiction not only with regarding to municipal law, but also it can exercise through international law also. This jurisdiction can be exercised by the state through its legislative, executive and judicial powers. And also it is also having that the power to prescribe certain rules and also enforce those rules through these three organs. Now we'll go with, that is, it also includes, that is, the state can exercise both the civil and criminal jurisdiction. Civil jurisdiction, what we said, that a state can exercise its power, authority within the territory, what is called as intra-territorial as well as extra-territorial jurisdiction. Then, according to this Max Huber, he said that is what is the sovereignty, or what is called as what is the supreme authority of a state. That is, it is the supreme authority of a state in relation to the states. The state is having certain jurisdiction or over a portion of the globe on which it is having exclusive and absolute authority or supreme authority. In this way, that is, the state can exercise both the territorial supremacy as well as bond of nationality over the state, and thereby it follows the state jurisdiction. Now we'll go with, under what circumstances the state can exercise jurisdiction. Under that, the state can exercise both civil and criminal jurisdiction. First, we'll see, that is the intra-territorial. Intra-territorial means a state can exercise jurisdiction within its territory. One. Second one is, that is, a state can also exercise jurisdiction on its national, if a national commits any crime even outside its territory. Third one is universal jurisdiction. That is, a universal principle means all the states are having the jurisdiction to try over the national if they commit any illegal acts or any crime. Protective jurisdiction. A state can exercise jurisdiction in order to protect its own national whenever any injury caused to its national when he is in abroad. Passive jurisdiction. Passive jurisdiction here, that is, a state can exercise jurisdiction over its national when he commits any, that is, any injury committed to its national by the foreign national. The foreign national can be punished. These are the circumstances under which a state can exercise jurisdiction. Now we'll go with one by one. What I said, that is, the state can exercise both civil and criminal jurisdiction. First one is intra-territorial jurisdiction. Intra-territorial jurisdiction means a state can exercise its power within its territory over the persons as well as property situated within its territory. For example, this Indian Penal Code, Section 2 deals with the jurisdiction of the state. That is, Indian Penal Code. According to Section 2 of the Indian Penal Code, it applies on all the nationals if they commit any crime within its territory. By application of this Indian Penal Code, that is, a national can be punished. One, intra-territorial means within its territory it can exercise its authority or power. One. Second one is extension of that is territorial jurisdiction. Again, that the state can extend its authority or powers on its individual or its national if they commit any crime, even it's outside its territory, considered as that national being its own national committed in within the territory only. For example, any that is national of India, if they goes for abroad and if they commit any crime there, then that person will be punished according to, that is, Indian Penal Code. For example, bigamy. Whenever a Indian citizen went to abroad, at that time, if he marries second time, then that person will be punished according to Indian Penal Code, because that it will be presumed that that national who is belong to Indian, he has committed certain crime even outside its territory, but Indian penal codes are applicable because that person is a Indian national. That is what is called as extension of territorial jurisdiction. Second. Third one is universal jurisdiction. Universal jurisdiction means, yeah, that is all states have the power to exercise jurisdiction or power if any person commits anything contrary to the international community. International community. It's what is called as universal jurisdiction. That means that is no person, if they commit any crime, should not be go unpunished. On that principle, that is every state is having the authority to punish such offender. For example, that is what is called as crime of piracy. That is, pirates are to be punished by all the states because they are considered as enemies of mankind. In that way, that is, a state can exercise jurisdiction. Next one is protective jurisdiction. A state can exercise jurisdiction over its national if they commit any crime outside its territory. Outside its territory, the state can exercise jurisdiction. Passive jurisdiction. Passive jurisdiction means whenever a foreigner commits any crime and that act gets injury to its own national, then the state who suffered injury by its individual, that state can exercise and it can exercise jurisdiction over the foreigner to punish that person. In that way, that is the state can exercise civil and criminal jurisdiction within its territory. The next theory is that there are certain exceptions that a state cannot exercise jurisdiction over its persons. Some persons, it cannot exercise jurisdiction, either civil or criminal jurisdiction. It cannot punish the persons. One is diplomatic envoys. First one is diplomatic envoys and foreign embassies. Second one is foreign sovereigns. Third one is foreign troops. Fourth one is warships and crew. Fifth one is international organizations. Sixth one, extradition treaties. In these, under these situations, that is, a state cannot exercise jurisdiction over all these persons. What is called as exceptions. First, we will go with diplomatic agents. These diplomatic agents are immune from civil and criminal jurisdiction because they are performing certain special function on behalf of the state, which is sending state. For that, they are conferred certain privileges and immunities which is conferred on them under the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Immunities and Privileges 1961 Act. For that, whenever they enter into any state jurisdiction, that the receiving state cannot exercise jurisdiction, cannot punish that person diplomatic envoy, either civil or criminal proceedings. They are immune from jurisdiction. Second one is foreign embassies. Again, foreign embassies are also considered as those persons are to be outside its territory or jurisdiction. They enjoy certain immunities and privileges because they perform certain sovereign functions, and they are also enjoyed certain privileges and immunities conferred under the Vienna Convention 1961. This can be seen number of cases. For example, there is R versus Kent and others. Whenever diplomatic envoy came to another state, that receiving state cannot punish the diplomatic envoy even if he commit any crime in the receiving state. Next one, foreign sovereigns. Foreign sovereigns are also treated as they are outside the territory of the receiving state and they are possessing certain privileges and immunities in the receiving state. This is the principle which is based on the par imperum, non habet imperium. That is, the principle means no state can claim jurisdiction on another state. Otherwise, that is no state can that is one state cannot amenable to the another state's sovereign. In this case, that is because in international law, each state is considered as sovereign, supreme, and equal in all the respects. Because already said, the state is the abstract entity, and in order to constitute state, there are four essential elements. By fulfilling all these essentials, that state becomes, that is a state. A forum it constitutes as a state. For that is either the state may be large or small, or maybe that is developed or that is underdeveloped state, but that is they are sovereign and they are immune from the civil and criminal jurisdiction in the receiving state, because one state cannot submit its dignity on another state. From that is for example, in this case, Schooner Exchange versus McFadden. That is how the foreigners, that is foreign sovereigns, are exempted from civil and criminal jurisdiction of the receiving state. In this case, Schooner Exchange, it is a ship belonged to United States of America. It was attacked by storm, and when it was stayed in Philadelphia, at that time, that is the French nationals, that is at the time some persons, that is French officials, French persons who are claimed the possession over the ship, and they seized on the high seas in pursuance of the Napoleonic that is decree. For that is United States of America, that is brought before the dispute before the American government, American court, and the court refused jurisdiction on the ground that it has sovereign immunity. That is, whatever the attack made by French nationals or French government is not admitted under international law, because that is foreign ships are having certain immunity. For that it was held that the foreign vessel was exempted from that is US jurisdiction, and it also held that is no nation that is having the authority exclusively and absolutely over another state, because each state is having certain sovereign authority within its territory and absolute power. What is called as independence of each state. That is what is it said that is each state is having, that is territorial integrity and political independence of the state. For that no state has to be submitted to another state's jurisdiction. Second case, Miguel versus Sultan. That is a principle what is called as parim parum. Parim parum, that is non habet imperium. No state can claim jurisdiction over another state. Again, this principle can be seen in this case, Miguel versus Sultan. In this case, a Sultan of Johor, when he was staying in England, he promised to one lady to marry her, but he failed to perform his promise. For that lady filed a suit before English court. For that it was held that is Sultan was contended that he was a sovereign of foreign national. For that he cannot be submitted to the sovereign of another state. For that the court has accepted that contention and decided in favor of the Sultan of Johor, because that is one sovereign cannot be submitted to the jurisdiction of another state. Like this, that is the foreign sovereigns are exempted from civil and criminal jurisdiction of the receiving state. Next one is what is called as international organization. That is foreign troops. Foreign troops, whenever the foreign troops, when they enter into the passage of another state, at that time it was considered that is when a state has granted to enter into the passage of another state, it is waived all its jurisdiction. It was considered for that is the troops, when they enter into the passage of another, they are exempted from any civil and political laws, civil and it is criminal jurisdiction, because on the principle of friendly, that is relationship, the troops cannot be subject to any prosecution. Next one is warships and their crews. Warships are immune from legal process or execution or judicial measures of the foreign authority. These immunities are also extended to the crew of the ship also. That is, these warships are not cannot be prosecuted, or they are exempted from any legal prosecution, execution, and that judicial measures. This also principle also extended to the crews of the ships. Next to international organizations. International organizations like WTO, World Trade Organization, United Nations Organization, or ICJ, that is International Court of Justice, where they situate. For example, that is WTO, World Trade Organization, when it is situated in Geneva, or that is World Trade, that is International Court of Justice. It is when it is situated in that is in Hague. These cannot be, that is where they situated in that state, that territory, or in that state, the state cannot that is prosecute either civil or criminal jurisdiction, because international organizations are immune from prosecution, and where they are situated, or in which state they are situated. That situated, that in which they are situated, that state cannot exercise any prosecution or any jurisdiction, either civil or criminal, against these international organizations, because they are having, that is they are performing certain, that is sovereign functions, for that they are immune from it is jurisdictions of the another state. Extradition treaties. Again, extradition treaties. That is extradition treaties. Whenever any national of any state who commits a crime, and for that that is a state cannot exercise over the accused on whom he has committed that is crime in that territory, because that is the extradition treaty, unless until there is a extradition treaty between the state on whose territory the accused has committed crime, and when after the committing that crime, when he ran away to another country to get asylum, unless until there is extradition treaty agreement between them, it cannot be, the state cannot request the receiving state to surrender that fugitive. For example, what we are observing, that is Vijay Mallya, how he is extradited, and now that is he is England has submitted that Vijay Mallya to Indian territory as per extradition treaties. Then what is that? Unless until there is extradition treaties, that is the state cannot exercise jurisdiction over that fugitive. This is about what is called as that is certain. There are certain exceptions to the state jurisdiction to exercise civil and criminal jurisdiction within its territory. The next, this one is, that is a state can exercise even criminal jurisdiction within the territory. Also, it can also extension its jurisdiction even outside its territory if the customary rules are permitted. This can be seen in SS Lotus case, the popular case. This case came before the Permanent Court of International Justice. In this case, that is the Bush Court, which was collided with the Lotus, which belonged to France, and this Turkey, that is the Bush Court, which that ship was belonged to Turkey. When these two ships are collided on the ocean, as a result of collision of that two ships, certain men of this Turkey were sunk and they were died. Then, when this that is Lotus ship, which belonged to France, when this that is Lotus ship, when it reached Constantinople, of this Turkey. At that time, that is the Turkish officials seized this lotus ship, and they were that is taken before the prosecution. And the Turkish government, it has they prosecuted according to the laws of Turkey, and it held that is the officials of this French ship were committed that is guilty, and they were convicted according to the laws of Turkey. After that is the French government lodged that is a complaint against that Turkey. That the state of Turkey has no jurisdiction to try its nationals on its territory. This case, that is case came before the Permanent Court of International Justice on both the agreement, both agreed and brought before the PCIG. The court held that is the act of Turkey, that is prosecuted these French nationals when it reached Turkey. For that is according to their laws, it was Turkey has not acted any contrary to the principles of international law, because it said that there is no rule in international law in regard to the collusion of cases to the effect that the criminal proceedings are exclusively within the jurisdiction of the state whose flag is flown. For that, it was the customary practice which was founded that based on that is if any crime committed, that should not be go unpunished. Because already said, for this criminal jurisdiction, there are three theories. One theory says that is the state can exercise its criminal jurisdiction within the territory, what is called as intra-territorial jurisdiction. Second one is even the state can extend its jurisdiction, even its if the national of its state committed any offence outside the territory. Third theory says that is what is called as universal jurisdiction. That is, if any person commits any crime, that person should not go unpunished on that universal jurisdiction. That is, a state can exercise jurisdiction even outside its even outside the territory. That is because even if the nationals of other states commits crime on its territory, it can exercise jurisdiction and it can punish according to the customary rules which are practiced. For that, in this act, Turkey has not gone any contrary to the customary rules of international law.